manda aquí la clave. Este ritmo guaguanco, esto es lo que existe. Y también está mi chamaco, nadie nos resiste. Aquí estamos bravos, la chema tan brava. Esta vida es brava, y yo también soy bravo. Por eso lo que repica son los cueros. Aquí lo que suena fue.
Friction arms are one of my favorite accessories. Today's tip, I show you how I use friction arms to make handles for my camera cage. All you have to do is hand screw the 1/4-20s, set your desired angle, and tighten to set in place. Now you have an adjustable handle with multiple uses, allowing you to get a better grip on your camera for stable handheld footage. It can also be set as a top handle to get very low angles. Mr. Camera Junkies, tip of the day. What is up, everybody? Welcome to the live stream. As always, my name's Lewis, Mr. Camera Junkie, and I remind you to upgrade your skills before your gear. Welcome to the live stream. Thank you for coming out and hanging out with me. And if you are watching this on the replay, please make sure to leave any questions that you might have in the comments as well, so that I can get to them at a later date. With that being said, I just want to say what's up to some people here. We had Jake stopping in, Kevin. We have James, Rob, Norm, and Scott. How we doing, everyone? I'm gonna just get right into it. You know, we already had the tip of the day, but I do want to thank everyone for hanging out and stopping by. We got Kevin saying that he's in the middle of a Bucks game. Okay, that's cool. I haven't watched sports in forever. And James saying that he's loving the background. Thanks, man. And Rob saying he's here for a change. That he's on time. Oh, man. Oh, yes. All right. Well, with that being said, I also do want to say happy Father's Day and happy Father's Day weekend to all of the fathers out there. I will be picking up Aiden tomorrow so that I can spend the day with him and with my father and celebrate Father's Day that way. I wish everyone who still has the ability to see their parents to go do that, to go see and say hello to your father if you have that ability, because time is fleeting, and that's one of my photography phrases that I always go to, which is life moves fast, so capture what you can. Okay, tonight's topic being new or used, or new versus used when it's your first camera. If you guys could, I would appreciate if you just let me know which was your first camera, or how did you get it, because it could be something, like most cameras are given to us when we're young, and they're usually a hand-me-down. So if that is, and you can remember what type of camera, let me know in the chat so I can, so we can talk about it later. I don't remember the exact model. I remember my first camera was a film camera that was given to me when I was really young, and I guess that started it all. But in today's day and age, we have a lot of people who are now getting into the photography and video, and when they want to step up to what they're calling a real camera, because most of the people who are starting to venture into purchasing a like I said, quote unquote, a real camera, which that it's I put air quotes because I find it funny. The camera on your phone is a real camera, but I'll get to that in a little bit. But when they start looking into either a DSLR or a mirrorless or anything in that aspect, they're trying to figure out how, or like what camera to buy. And we've all heard it, which is the camera, what camera should I get? And that's where I kind of have a bias, and I lean more towards my recommendation of always going towards the used market versus a new camera, because one of the things that you constantly hear, or that we hear a lot, is that, you know, things can be overwhelming. Well, if you're new into photography, I don't think that getting a piece of tech that has so much technology when you don't know how to use any of it is a good idea, because that is when I would use the word overwhelming. You can get overwhelmed with the technology and then limit yourself, even though you have everything, to just using a quarter or even less of the technology that you have in your hand. Right now, excuse me, like there's a shift going on at the moment because of something that I had mentioned before, which was the worldwide chip shortage and how it's affecting all aspects of our lives, because the silicone chips that actually run all of these electronic devices are in everything. And I had mentioned that weeks ago, and I think this week was when the photography world got hip to it, so to speak, you know, like the Tony Northrups and quite a few other people that I follow are now talking about it, and now they're coming to grips of how it's affecting all of the camera manufacturers. And that's why we're seeing so many delays in these quote-unquote cameras that are supposed to be coming out. So like the Sony camera, the new ZV-E-10 that's supposed to come out, which is like the ZV-1 with the interchangeable lens, you know, everything is being delayed because that one was supposed to come out in May, at least the announcement, and even the announcements are being delayed. I just read up that Canon R3, which is their rumored new camera, also is being delayed. And we're seeing delays in so many aspects of the world, and now it's really hitting hard into the photography world, which is why camera prices are now on the rise. Even in the used market, what you would be able to get a camera for a couple $100 is now going pretty much double that. So a $200 camera is now going for $400, $450, and I'm talking about like a Sony A6000 that body only could have been had for that price easily just last year, and now they're going for close to $500 on the used market. And this is, you know, like my favorite places to find used gear in local markets like Facebook Marketplace and OfferUp, which is my favorite application for used gear pretty much. But on top of those applications, you also have so many websites now that are completely dedicated to used gear. And when I started to do a little research on it for tonight's stream, man, I was so surprised on how many websites are actually out there that I wasn't even aware of. I had just came privy to a new website called Gear Focus, and apparently they're dedicated to the online purchase and sales of camera gear, and they're only charging a 3% transaction fee to use their entire service, which is really good comparative to other sites like eBay, which I don't recommend. I tried to use eBay recently, and I tried to use eBay recently, and it was not a good experience. Let me just say that, like, their fees are ridiculous, and there's no way for you to know what they are up front, and then when they charge you on the back end, you're just like, I did all this work for nothing. I almost felt like the items that I sold through eBay were almost given away because of the whole transaction. So that really goes to show you. But that's just my most recent experience with eBay, and I wouldn't recommend it to anyone for that reason. Well, let me take a look here. Let me take a look at the chat. Okay. So, oh, we got Norm in the house as well. What's up, Norm? And Scott Rogers. We have Kevin. Okay, let me see what's going on in the chat. It says, love me some friction arms for a little piece of cake. Okay, we're talking about the tip of the day here. Okay. I started with a phone camera for years. See, that's great. And I'm gonna touch into that because a lot of people right now are moving from their phone camera, and it's so convenient. It does so much for you that when they go into a DSLR or mirrorless, I highly recommend getting something used to see if you like it. It's like an appetizer plate, or a sampler. I think the sampler is Denny's, right? Where they give you a little bit of everything so that you could actually taste to see what's to your liking. And if something is not to your liking, then you don't have to, you can veer away from it. But I think FOMO has a lot to do with it with the new gear. But right now, I think used gear is even taking a higher precedence, for the reason that you can't even get the new gear if you wanted it. So, disclaimer right off the bat, if you have the ability to purchase the new gear and it's available, hey, more power to you. But this is more, I'm kind of leading more towards if you're getting new into photography or thinking about making the upgrade from, say, like a phone to a full-size camera, then I highly recommend you go towards the used market versus the new. There's no reason for you to invest so much money. It's almost like a used car, right? Like if you're first time driver, if you have the ability, you can get into a new car, but 9 times out of 10, it's most likely going to be a used car that you're going to get into, that you're going to be learning before you make the purchase for a new car. You have to know that this is something that you want to do continuously, that before you just jump the gun. But that right now with the chip shortage, like I had mentioned before, the new cameras are even so hard to find that used market is even being that much more utilized. And let me just focus here. It's being utilized so much right now that there's people who have purchased the latest and greatest technology and don't know how to use it, and then actually become overwhelmed with the technology and then veer away from the entire creative field like photography or video, because they feel like that they will never be able to level up from their smartphones to a full-size camera. Now, I think I'm here to actually help. What happened there? Oh, let me not do that. Sorry about that. Okay. My computer just went into screensaver mode. Sorry about that. Okay, let me check the chat before I continue. Kevin says, why is it on the background? Says, actually it was a Rebel XS. Had to check myself because it wasn't right. Oh, he had said that his first camera was a Canon EOS 1. Says, I bought my first SLR. Man, this is not supposed to be there. Let me check this out. Yeah, something's going on. Let me go back to one here. There we go. That's better. Says, I bought my first DSLR in 1966, brand new. When it was time to send my children to university, I started to buy used gear. Dollar for dollar, buying a recent model used can be much better than new. Yeah, and I highly agree. Like, what I was also going to mention was, right now, because I've been using my cameras so much in the live stream, that they've been pretty much set up here, unless it's been a job that I need to use them, I've left them there. And the camera that I've been using the most lately has been my Sony NEX6, and as you can see, I'm using the kit lens with it. It's so compact that I just grab it and I go make sure that I snap some pictures of anything if it's relevant while I'm on the road, and continue to, you know, even take some pictures of my jobs. My very first camera I personally purchased was the Kodak disc camera. It didn't want to have to purchase flash cubes, and the film was very cool. It was a gimmick. Oh, Alicia's in the house. What is up, bro? How are you doing, man? Thanks for stopping by. Says computer chip shortages are affecting everything: cars, cameras, all kinds of equipment. Yeah, and especially now because all the equipment, like those chips are in every piece of gear that we own now, from our coffee makers to our Bluetooth, you know, like desktop speakers. Is like everything with connectivity has to have silicon chips in it. Says check out Robert's cameras for used gear in the USA. Look, I didn't even get into it because I made such a long list of, you know, like reputable websites like Gear Focus, KEH, Adorama, Photo Focus, Used Photo Pro, MBP. B&H has a used department, and then that's not even going into like borrowlenses.com or lensrentals.com. They have highly taken care of, like very good used gear that they're constantly renting, and it's being used but in the most delicate manner. And then after a while they put some of this gear for sale to make room for the newer models that are going to be rented. That's their business, and you can capitalize on that, especially right now as the prices of new gear is also soaring. Because of the fact that new gear is not available, people are making purchases. Like if you wanted the new Sony A1, for instance, that's a $6,500 camera. But if you were to go to B&H Photo, it's not available because of the delay. But if you go to eBay, you can find it for $8,000 because they're marking it up like so much just because of the availability. So if you have the FOMO and you want to, like, you know, like you have to have the new camera, then there you go. You have the ability to go and purchase it, you know, right from eBay, but you're gonna know that you're gonna be spending $1,500 to, you know, $2,500 above the list price because of the simple fact that you need to have it right now. For example, I use two cameras on the stream. Right now we're looking at the A6100 and my main photography camera, this one right here. Let's go to it. This is the Sony A7R2. Now the A7R2 came out when I purchased this camera was when the A7R4 was available. So, oh, what was that? Okay. All right, so when the A7 IV came out in, I believe, September of 2019, so it's getting close to 2 years that I've had this camera in my hands. The owner of this camera barely used it. I think I grabbed this device with, it was well under 500 shutter actuations, which is like nothing. That's like testing the camera. But I think it was under like 250 actually shutter actuations. So it was brand new in a box, lenses, everything. I grabbed it for $1,200 with a 50mm f1.8 lens, bag, and the whole little like kit, all these accessories, brushes, wipes, you name it. Just because he needed to have the newest camera that just came out. So when I took this off of his hands was because he had already purchased the A7R4, because it was the latest and greatest. Like he could have like held himself off, because the A7R3 was the same megapixel count, but once it was a jump in megapixels to the 61.2, I believe, megapixels in the A7R4, he went and spent $4,000 on it, and now was just trying to recoup as much as he could, and I picked that up for that price. I already owned the 50mm f1.8, so I didn't need two of them. So right away I put that for sale, and I sold that for $200. So I ended up picking this camera up for $1,000 close to 2 years ago. And I tell you that story because right now this camera, body only, still sells for $1,300. So somebody's FOMO was my, like, you know, like my come up, so to speak, because I really got an amazing deal because somebody just had to have the latest and greatest gear. But that's the story on that. Let me check this out. It says, given the used camera prices are on the rise, you feel camera rental prices will go up? So far, prices seem stable at borrowlenses.com. I actually don't think so, because they're the ones that actually buy the majority of these cameras on day one. And that's the truth, because, you know, most professionals are gonna rent cameras because there is an advantage to renting a camera. If you're a you know, top end professional, let's say you're doing weddings, a lot of the wedding photography field changed when the new Sony camera came out, and the one that really changed everything was the Sony A7 III, the hybrid 24.4 megapixel. That camera's autofocus was so good, and still is, that, for example, I was watching a video of DP Review, Jordan and Drake, and I mean Chris and Jordan. Look at me. Jordan and Drake. I don't know where that came from. I'm getting better with names, and I'm working on it. But I digress. So I was watching the DP Review guys, and they were rating, you know, cameras, and when it comes to autofocus, even though they're older cameras, Sony is still rated number one in their eyes because of just the way that it works. Hold on, let me hydrate. So when the A7 III came out, what a lot of photography businesses were doing was they would rent the cameras on location. So let's say they were doing a wedding here in Miami, they would fly to Miami and have a company, Lens Rentals or something like that, ship the necessary gear to that location and have it there ready, so that they don't have to be lugging the gear that they're going to need for the particular wedding. And depending on the size of the wedding is depending on what they would rent. They started renting a lot of A7 IIIs because the autofocus was so good, and that they knew that they didn't have to worry, and they started hiring a lot of entry level, or, you know, like just entry level or beginning photographers to be the second shooters at their weddings or at their events. They would take care of the more, you know, delicate images that needed to be taken, but then they would just basically give, you know, 3 or 4 cameras to 3 or 4 second shooters and just let them go wild on the, you know, like in the reception, to just get all of the candid photography shots, and some with some list, and then at the end of the night they would just pick up all of the gear and, you know, that would be it. Thank you for your services for your second shooting. And they would keep everything, download the footage, and then pack up the gear and ship it back to like the rental company. So there's a lot of advantages when it comes to that. I've heard of other companies that are a bit bigger that also have like gear deposits at each sides of the United States. So if they're going to be doing, you know, like a commercial job on the East Coast, they have a East Coast, I would say like a storage locker, you know, like part or office that already has their equipment for the East Coast jobs, and then one similar to it on the West Coast, so that they don't have to be lugging gear in such long distances back and forth. So there's definite advantages to like the gear rental places, and because they work so much in that manner, when a new camera drops, the first 1,000 units or more are going to locations like lens rentals, borrow lenses, so on and so forth, because they're the ones who are actually going to be putting these cameras to the most use. Oh, Super Dave is in the house. What's up, man? Let me catch up on these chats to see if, hopefully you're still here to hear the explosion. It says eBay is okay for lower price items, but more pricey items, eBay takes a big cut of the final price. Yeah, I sold the Movado watch, and I was very disappointed. That's all I have to say. And I was just giving it a shot just to say, you know what, let me just do it that way, see, and I'll definitely stick to Facebook Marketplace or OfferUp myself. I've mentioned this before. It's kind of like a double win, like a win-win, because I usually meet somebody local and then offer, and let them know about my iPhone repair services. And 9 times out of 10, because my service is so convenient, that they actually end up calling me once they know that my service is available. All right. I bought my A6100 used for $650 with the kit lens and a telephoto lens. Oh, if you got it with 2 lenses, that's an amazing deal. You can take advantage of a good camera. Both of those lenses have optical steady shots, so it will allow you to learn, and you have pretty much all the focal ranges that you're going to need for the foreseeable future. I would tell you to mess around with those lenses and see where you fall, because you're gonna start noticing yourself that you're gonna like using one lens over the other, and then if you do, then you're also gonna know which focal length you're gonna start liking more than the other. Once you start figuring out, you know what, I really like shooting like a real telephoto, or I like the 16mm ultra wide, then I highly recommend that once you pinpoint what is your favorite focal length, then save up and invest the most that you can in a prime lens of that focal length. That's photography in a nutshell. But congratulations, that's a great deal. I got a new A6100, but you James, that was a little bit of a different situation. You knew exactly what you were looking to get into when you bought that, because you were upgrading from your webcam and you had an exact plan in mind. So it says learn some skills and technique before you buy the top of the line brand new. Yeah, one of the things that I was gonna mention was excuse me, when you buy used, just like Sloth here, who actually purchased the A6100, you're going to learn your favorite focal length. Like I said, you're going to find that out, and once you know that, then you could expand and know exactly what it is. But in that same manner that you find out your favorite focal length, buying a used camera is gonna allow you to know what's going to be your next step. So, you know, we deal, well, I guess I deal with a lot of people who are asking me which is the next camera that they should buy. And being Mr. Camera Junkie, right away I ask a question before I give an answer. I'm like, what are you going to be using it for? And 9 times out of 10, they're better off with their iPhone. And when I let them know that, they get upset because they think that I'm trying to be kind of like a gatekeeper, like, oh, you're just not trying to tell me. And I'm like, it's quite the opposite. Either you're willing to take something like this and learn how to use it, or you're better off just having the convenience of the iPhone, which is gonna do everything for you. And because a lot of people are accustomed to that ease of use with the iPhone, it is a little bit of, you know, a little harder to get into something where you are the most dependent thing for the camera. You know, you do have auto mode, but if you put one of these cameras in auto mode, don't be surprised that you're gonna get images that are very similar to what you would get from your iPhone, right? Because you're letting the computers inside the devices dictate all of the photography aspects in your photo. So, getting back to it, I recommend buying something used, and it's kind of like I said before, like a sampler. You can try it out, and if you don't like the analog aspect of it, you know, whatever it is, even if it is a minimal amount of buttons and dials, but the fact that you're in control and it's not just like look at it and press a big red button on the back of your screen, then you haven't really lost much. You know, you haven't invested that much in a used piece of gear to let it sit there and not do nothing, comparative to spending thousands on the newest stuff and then try to recoup a lot of that money and sell it to somebody like me on the used market. Because the A6100 that I have here, I'm surprised that I got it for the price that I did. I ended up paying $500 flat for this camera with the kit lens in May last year, 2020. So when I picked this one up, the A7R2, that was actually like in September 2019, and I was running a pair of the A7R2 and the A6000. But it was this one that popped up on the used market because somebody paid full price and did exactly what we're talking about here, didn't use the camera. I got this one with about 500 shutter actuations as well. I was blown away that I was like, this thing is practically brand new. Like, they purchased it for me and lost money in the transaction. And I picked it up for $500 and been super happy since. So it's funny, it's just been a year that I've had this one. And yeah, anyone who's been here before on the channel knows that I absolutely love my A6100. Just do your research before buying used gear. Ask people who know. Yeah, ask me if you have any questions about cameras and lenses. Choose wisely, but you can build a great kit for a reasonable amount of money. Yeah. It's like, and once you know what you want, that really gives you that advantage. Because there's a lot of people who don't even know the gear that they have. So if they don't know the gear that they have, that you could really negotiate for your advantage. I bought myself a used 85mm micro Nikkor for Father's Day. Better working distance than my 60mm macro. Used it on the D500 with the Mez 64 and the Nikon SB26 flash on a pair of strobo frame quick flips. You just blew my mind, Norm. Like, there was so much stuff there that I was like, I'm not familiar with all of these terminologies, but thank you for putting them down because I definitely have stuff to check out in a little bit. Mario saying what's up. What's up, Mario? Thanks for stopping by. All right, Norm says, when you buy used, you can upgrade within a year or two and recoup pretty much the full price that you paid for the gear. That is very true. And the way that I think about it, that whatever you lost, in the difference from buying it new towards the price that you sell it for a couple of years down the road, rental fee. Because there's no rental, there's no website that will allow you to rent a Sony camera that will depreciate in value maybe a couple $100 in in a couple of years for $200, right? You wouldn't be able to rent a new type camera for $200 for 2 years. So in that aspect, I agree. You have to look into it, but definitely is worth getting it if you know what you're doing. This is Chris and Jordan are from Calgary. Yeah, I don't know where I got that name, but I think that is his last name, right? It's Chris Nichols and Jordan Drake. So I said Jordan and Drake, but I literally just said his first and last name as two different names, which just made me realize that he has two first names, right? Jordan and Drake. That's like Lewis and John. That's my first and last name. Lewis John. That's funny. Norma's saying hi to Mario. Best photo tutorial. Sean McHugh's Cambridge in Color website. He explains everything you need to know about camera settings. Nice. I gotta check that out. Kevin says, I think as such a key, knowing why you're buying and having it and calculating decision to purchase something for a specific reason. Like, let me give you an example. I had the Sony A6000. The Sony A6000 does not have 4K. And that was basically the only thing that it didn't do for me. So for me, why did I want 4K? Because the image that you're seeing right now is even 1080 in high definition. That's basically what I use. But why did I want 4K? Because of my B-roll sequences. So for instance, what can you do with a 4K image? Well, the image that you're seeing here looks good, and this is 1080p. 4K is basically 4 times this image. So you can crop in to this same size on a 4K image and not lose quality to the point that you will see pixelation like if you were doing ultra zoom on a JPEG image. Let me see if I can give an example of how to explain this. Well, in the image itself, if this were to be here, if I could just scale it, like in the box that you're seeing here, right? Like the box image here. If this were to be 4K, that means I can crop into just basically like a smaller part of the image here. And that just the square part that I have here would be just as in focus as this entire image that you're seeing here. So what I would do with my 4K images for B-roll was I would take one static image. So like let's say I was going to take the picture of or the video of this camera here. I would literally just place it there and take one 4K video that had high detail of the entire camera. Now with that video, I'm able to crop in and use special effects in post, like Burns effect and just sliding across to be able to punch in to get extra detail, and then like slide the image across the screen as if I were to be using a professional slider. And all I did was record it in 4K and then do the slider, processing in post production. that's why I wanted 4K. I was like, that's gonna make my life easier instead of having to have a slider move around, and if I got a little bump in it, I would then have to start using, image stabilization and stuff like that in post, making things harder on myself. I was like, let me take the load off and let me go and get a 4K camera. Now, wanting to get a 4K camera, the most obvious thing were to have been to, at that time, the A6100 I don't think was out. Or regardless, even if it was out, I think it was out, the A6100. I was contemplating on just either going to that or going into a full frame camera. So when it came to photography, the A7R2 matched every aspect of what I wanted to get out of photography. High resolution, it used the same batteries that I was already using with the A6000, so I didn't have to change like the entire setup of chargers and start carrying new batteries. I wanted to get into the full frame ecosystem with Sony, so that met that aspect. And then when it came to video, it has 4K. And now with 4K, it also has in-body image stabilization. So I really couldn't compare this camera to an A6000 because it doesn't have the IBIS. So this camera really started comparing itself more to the A6500, not even the A6400, because that one still doesn't have IBIS. So the first camera that came out with in-body image stabilization, the APS-C line, was the A6600. And when I started looking at all the features that this camera had comparative to that one, and even in price, because if it was the A6600, not even the A6500, at that time you're looking at, I think, $1,600 that the A6600 was going for, and this one I picked up on the used market for $12 at the same time, or basically $1,000. So this one checked off so many boxes, because whenever I needed to use 4K, it does have a crop and it goes into Super 35 mode or APS-C mode. So that gave me an advantage for the fact that the majority of my glass and one of my favorite lenses, the Sigma 16mm that you're seeing now, I can now put onto this camera and it's going to be utilized correctly. I can get 4K and it's image stabilized with steady shot built in. It was just so many wins with this camera that it was a no-brainer. And whenever I needed to go to photography, I have the ability to go full frame at 42.2 megapixels, which is something that the A6600 and the A6500 could never do on their best day. So with that being said, it was like having a top end or even flagship APS-C camera built into a pretty much high resolution, one of the flagship full frame cameras from Sony, for a lot cheaper, because I thought it through. I really thought it through. I made checklists, and I'm like, what do I need? What did I want more out of my A6000 that I wasn't getting? And then I just started breaking it down. Once I knew that this was the camera that I was going to buy, that's when the hunt for the deal, took over, right? And that's when I started looking for the best deal. That's when I found it for $1,200 because somebody had FOMO. Their loss, my gain, and the rest is history. But it all started with me knowing exactly what I wanted and what I wanted to get out of my camera before I took the next step. It's kind of like that carpenter or or construction workers mentality, where they tell you measure twice and cut once. Do that. that's all part of the same mentality. It's like, think twice before you make the next step, because it makes all the difference. You will never regret of saying, you know what, I bought this and I didn't really need it. I don't think there's anything worse than that. It says Google Norm's favorite 2-flash micro rig to see how I photograph bugs and flowers. I'm definitely gonna check that out, Norm. Hey, Kippy's in the house. What's up, Kippy? Okay, so Norm's saying hi to Kippy, and Kippy's returning the salutations. Okay, so let me see about all the stuff that I had written down here. Yeah, I was really surprised, getting back to this real quick, that I was really surprised how many websites are out there for used gear. Like, the one that I'm definitely gonna check out right now, I think, is Borrow Lenses. Not Borrow Lenses, I got it here, right? Gear Focus. Gear Focus, I believe, is, I've seen a couple of people mention them as being like ideal for photography and selling, you know, camera gear. And I think I'm gonna put my Sony lens that I had mentioned before, my 10-18, and I think I'm gonna put it on Gear Focus and see how that experience runs. Because right away, like, I would never sell that lens on eBay. Just hands down, won't sell it on eBay. I'm not a fan. So I'm gonna check out Gear Focus and let's see how the experience goes. I was even thinking, you know, I'm getting half a mind of just maybe selling it outright to KEH, because that's one thing that KEH is, I guess, a little bit different from Gear Focus. Gear Focus is more like an auction-based website where you put the gear to sell, and once it does, they take their cut and kind of just works that way. I think I'll be taking care of the shipping and everything. If you're not into that aspect and you're just like saying, nope, that's not something that I want to do or deal with when it comes to selling my gear, if that's the side that you're looking at it, then I think KEH is probably the best thing that you can do, because I think KEH will just outright buy the lens or the gear or whatever it is that you're selling outright, and they'll just send you a check, and then that would be it. Like, they bought it, and then they'll handle everything else from there, from reselling, so on and so forth. So that's another option, but there's so many great options that I really was taken aback on how many options are available when it comes to just purchasing and selling, you know, used gear. And that's another thing. Another reason why I think you should buy used is because you actually can buy it. You know, comparative to waiting for something new. If you need to have something new, then you're probably going to be waiting over a year for the camera that you want. I don't know about you, but I'm not going to spend over a year without taking photos or video because of a shortage. And that's why I said, like, even if you are waiting for a $3,000 camera, if that's within your budget, then it shouldn't hurt you at all to buy a $100 camera to have and to learn in the meantime while you're looking for your next camera purchase, because it's only going to teach you to know exactly what you want and what you don't want. You know, like, you don't want your camera to be an all-you-can-eat buffet. You want it to be exactly what you ordered. You know, nothing else. That's a good one. It says, thanks for the stream. Heading out to pick up dinner. We'll catch everyone later. Thanks for stopping by, man. I appreciate you. And enjoy your dinner. I don't know how much longer we're going to be hanging out here, so I don't know if we're going to be here when you get back. But as always, thank you for spending your time here with me, sir. Okay. Yeah, and that's today's subject. I would love to know what your thoughts on it. I know I got Norm's ideas here. to see what you guys think about this global chip shortage. How do you think it's going to be affecting well, not only the camera industry, but pretty much every industry from here on out? Because I've been, I'm in the computer field as well, and I was researching this, and I believe that the main thing that's missing from the production of the silicone chips that we need to use for these devices is fresh water. It's very interesting, but apparently in the Philippines and where this is being manufactured in China, that they're having a problem with the supply of fresh water. And it's not just like, hey, let's just go pick up some water bottles at Costco. No, it's it's massive amounts of fresh water, and it's not purified water, it's fresh water. So it's not like you can take something that was there and take and strip the negative away and then use that. No, it's different. It's fresh water that's missing from, which is the main resource of why we're having a global chip shortage. So it's very interesting. It's hard to explain that aspect, but if you're interested, I would tell you to look up inglets. Yeah, INGLETS. Not sure if I'm saying that exactly, but it's how the silicone is produced and how it's cut, how it's distributed, and then how it's utilized. It is amazing what's being done. But that goes to show you that that's how memory actually works. When you hear these History Channel or documentaries or the Science Journal saying we can store so much information in a drop of water, it falls into the same aspect. So it's very interesting. I'm researching more into that aspect, but as of right now, it seems like now people are starting to realize how crazy things can get because of how I mentioned it before. Prior to this day and age, that everything that we own carries let's just call it a smart chip in it, right? Something that has a high level of communication, even if it is your coffee maker, a Bluetooth device, something. It's gonna have the silicone chips inside of it to make it work. It's a controller. And before, when the silicone was being produced, it would be plenty for the fields that it was catering to, for the computer fields, because they weren't as big as they are today. Now, the same amount of production is not being able to cater to the way that the world is pulling at it now, for the reason that it's not only the computer industry, but the gaming industry and the home furnishing industry and the home appliance industry, and every cell phone and every electronic device pretty much that's coming out is now pulling from the same resource, and it's having a really hard time keeping up with the demand. So supply and demand, when the demand is like that, the prices seem to soar, and that's where everything is going up in prices. So personally, I believe that some store managers are making the items show on their websites out of stock. It says they are the ones that sell them on eBay for higher prices. Ooh, I didn't even think about that. But one thing that I heard was that Nvidia, which is trying to keep it within the same thing. Nvidia, for those who don't know, is generally a graphics card or computer graphics card manufacturers. They've been known to have the best video cards for years, especially in the gaming niche and realm. So Nvidia has been so depleted. It's like they've gone back to older models and are pushing them out as new because it's the only inventory that they have. So for example, it's like Toyota. I believe Toyota and everything, like all these car manufacturers, they're not coming out with new vehicle designs. It's like what's out there is what's available, and you can purchase what you can, because even cars have so many solenoids and resistors and transistors, and everything is connected now via smart technology and Bluetooth and what is it, the satellite radio, which it's just crazy how much this shortage is affecting everything, because it's like everything is coming to a halt. Who knows, maybe that's what's making the ice cream machines at McDonald's go bad. Peter Gregg, shout out to you, sir. Always talking about the ice cream machines at McDonald's not working correctly. So who knows if the chip shortage is also affecting the regulation of the temperature and correctly in these ice cream machines, and that's what's been failing. So it goes to show you it's affecting everything, even the ice cream. But yeah, I think that's it. Let me see what we got here. It says the pandemic lockdowns created massive demands for computer technology and video gear. That's where the chips have been going. That is true, because one of the first bottlenecks, right? Let's call it that way. One of the first bottlenecks that we had was like the Elgato Camlink video capture cards. It was like they had been out on the market, nobody was really doing anything with them. Lockdowns come around, and what ends up happening is that everybody starts needing to do Zoom meetings. They need to start connecting different types of cameras. All those Logitech C920 webcams and Elgato Camlinks sold out everywhere and were on back order for months. And it was so bad that, you know, shout out to Ecamm. Ecamm is the program that I use to run all of the displays and everything here on the live stream. When they realized that people weren't able to use their program to get online because they didn't have the cameras to connect, I think within 3 days they had an update to allow like so many cameras that would have naturally used a video capture card to be able to be used via USB with their program, just so that they didn't have to wait on the back order of the Elgato Camlink. So that's a great great accomplishment for Ken and Glenn of Ecamm. Those guys rock. But it goes to show you that right away, that was like one of the first fields that got hit with the supply and demand when this whole lockdown came down and people started connecting online. It says Taiwan is having water shortages right now. You need the water to do the wafers. Yeah, but the reason, like, I digress on this, but it's like I feel that it's the water itself. So for instance, you know, like, not to get too nerdy or too technical, but the same properties that allow you to hold memory in a drop of water is what's being extracted to create the memory silicon. And then what's left over is not usable, and that's why there's, like I mentioned, the difference between purified water and fresh water. says everyone is online for Zoom meetings and working from home. School lockdowns create thousands of new computers to be online per school. Absolutely. And these whole networks, like there's so many new phones that are hitting up the same towers, and it's just things are really starting to get bottlenecked in a lot of aspects. Work at the U.S. Postal Service. The mail has gone down tremendously from this time last year. People paying off their credit cards. Ooh, that's good information. Thanks for that. When we had the big power blackout years ago, it was like living in the dark ages. The current chip shortage is nothing in comparison. Wow, that's interesting. Where were you when that happened? Like, where were you located? Because that's very interesting. Art Carrasco, how are you doing? Welcome, sir. We have headed down this path for decades. The pandemic just accelerated things. I agree. The people who had no idea that they needed to step up to this were forced into it. So, but nice to have you here, sir. I appreciate you stopping by on the live stream. Taiwan has just got off water restrictions, so their plants are going back online. Nikon closed down their factories in Japan and now is manufacturing in Thailand. That's good information, sir. Says, hi Randall, I mailed the letter last week. Canada to Canada cost $147 for the stamp. It cost us $5 to mail a magazine. We used to pay 17 cents 40 years ago. Well, that is like the snowball effect. Cause even me, I haven't been around that long. Well, that's like 40 years ago. That was in 81. That was when I was born. So yeah, I wouldn't expect that, but inflation is I'm not gonna say. It says, look up Jocko talking about starting up his clothing company, Origin. We've been moving all the skills, trades, and equipments to one place. When that place has a crisis, everyone lost everything. Ooh, that's interesting. Yeah, and I've mentioned this before. I totally agree. Like in the United States, we don't really produce anything besides culture. You know, like we produce Britney Spears, you know, for the other countries to like look at us, but that's pretty much it. Everything has a made in China sticker, and if there was one thing that I think that they should make in China is better made in China stickers. Like I've been seeing the same damn made in China stickers my entire life. That damn little gold oval. Come on, let's get something new. like if everything's made there, then why? Who's making your stickers that are still stuck in 1981? Let's get with it. Let's get with the times, and get some new made in China stickers. Winter storm this last February was exactly what Norm is saying. More people were in cars to stay warm and in line for fast food drive-thrus. Saying hi and what's up to all. Toronto, the blackout hit East Canada and New England states, and powered blackout started a transformer in Niagara Falls, New York. What year was this? Sorry to quiz you for so much, because it's like I'm not familiar with this blackout. I guess it happened. Let me know what year, because I'm just not privy to this information. And I would love to know what year, if you can let me know, Norm. Also, how long were you guys out without power? Because I remember seeing one, within my lifetime, but I don't remember how long. I remember seeing a bunch of people on the bridges in New York. crazy stuff. Maybe we're talking about the same one. 55 cents for first class letter, and any ounce over you at 20 cents. Is that's not today's prices, is it? Oh, maybe a first class letter. Letters are totally different. I usually ship packages. But see if Norm is able to answer that. Every extra ounce costs 20 cents, 55 cents for the first ounce. Oh, so I guess these are. It says mid 60s for the blackout. Okay, thanks for answering for that, Randall. I appreciate it. Okay, with that being said, I'm gonna start closing things down. Some news for what's happened in the past week. For those of you who were here with us last week, you also were aware that my new shirts are now available on the Press and Sew website. So pressandsew.com/MCJ or MrCameraJunkie MCJ, and that'll bring up the website with Upgrade Your Skills t-shirt. Once I mentioned that last week, I was made aware from Sylvia herself, who she's awesome, that some of you guys ordered the shirt and put in your orders the same day. So I want to thank all of you who actually took the time and stopped over to get, like your dibs on the first set of the Upgrade Your Skills shirts. With that being said, also I'm aware that they were printed and I believe that they're shipped as far as this week, so we should be receiving the packages, including myself, in this upcoming week. So I'm excited about that, and once again, thank you to Sylvia and Andrew. They're just such an awesome couple, and I'm really excited to be working with them because it's a great company. I feel that, like, truly. So that's that. Yeah, and I think that was it as far as the news goes. It says the blackout was in August. Here's Norm's response saying the blackout was in August 2003. It lasted up to 4 days in some areas, affected Canada, Midway, New England. It was very interesting. See, 4 days is bad, but I guess it just depends on how big of an area, and I think that's a huge area to be out of electricity for 4 days. The reason why I mention it is because living in Florida, we get by without power pretty well. I guess having hurricane season here all the time, it's something that we're used to. Just, it happens. So I don't remember the names, because I really don't pay attention to the names of the tropical storms and the hurricanes that constantly swing by the Florida and the Caribbean. But it was one, I would say like 3 to 4 years ago, came by. It was making a ruckus, but nothing that was like endangering the house. But I did see that my neighbor, right, he had this tree with like an extra long arm, let's just say it was an extra long arm just swinging in the breeze. And when winds really started picking up, it really started to bend over. And when that arm really started to bend over, that branch, right, really started, it grabbed the power line, got entangled in it, and when the wind let up and the tree came back, it just snapped it right off the pole, took out the power for the entire neighborhood, and we were out of power for, I'd say 3 weeks, maybe even a month. And that's not even me getting into the story when like Hurricane Andrew passed over here in '92 and we were out of power for I think close to 2 months of just getting used to living with no electricity. And it's hot over here, man. So it's not even like Because even I would say some places with elevation, you can get up into some mountains and get some cool breeze. In Florida, we're just flat, and on sea level, it's just like we're a frying pan, and it's just hot. So when you don't have the power, it really gets to be trouble. Yeah, I remember Hurricane Andrew because it was tough. It was even tough to like fall asleep at night because the humidity was through the roof and there was no wind. You know, like they say, the calm after the storm. There was like just no wind. It was like stagnant, no movement of air, and hot humidity, no electricity. Those days sucked, man. Well, I digress. It says for a letter on the ounces, yes, and those are today's prices. Couldn't get gas because the pumps run on electricity. We barbecued all of our meals for 4 days. Yeah, everything was barbecue. Everything was propane gas. We lucky that we had a gas grill, but we used it for all the cooking. Yeah. Says the cold freeze affected the gas pumps. Says Lewis, you make great choices for your business. Well, thank you. I appreciate it. Says that was a big blizzard. We just broke out the skis. Oh, the skis. So not a northerner because I've never gone skiing or snowboarding or anything like that. Yeah. In all actuality, I haven't seen snow. Even the time that I spent in New York, I wasn't fortunate enough to see snow falling when I was up there. So it says, bring out the ski snowmobiles and had a great time. See, that's cool, but that's making the most of, like a bad situation. Yep, I have a bunch of pictures of South Florida with like all the trees down, like all the carnage after that last hurricane that I was mentioning, and I don't even remember the name of the hurricane because it's all the same. I remember Andrew just because what tends to happen in Florida, right, is that whatever hurricane passes by and does destructive damage, apparently that year and the following year, all the male babies or female babies, depending on the gender that the name is, end up getting the name. So I can't even tell you how many kids born in 1992 were named Andrew. Just so many kids in 1992 were like Andrew. Even to today's I see them, I'm like, so what's your name? Andrew. I'm like, oh yeah, okay. So you're around 28, 29 years old. Says we had 36 inches of snow in 12 hours in Montreal. Wow. I was stuck in a bowling alley with 4 bus loads of skis, school children, their parents, hired snowmobile club members to come and pick up the kids. That's cool though. I think I would have had like a snow day. If I had, I would just love to get on a snowmobile. I think that would be my ideal of recreational fun in snow. But with that being said, thank you so much for hanging out with me, guys. I do appreciate all of you stopping by, hanging out. I want to once again say happy Father's Day, because we are on Sunday now, so it's officially Father's Day. Happy Father's Day to all the dads. And if you have the ability to say I love you to your father, I highly suggest you do that. If that's something that you're able to do. But as always, thank you for hanging out with me on the Camera Junkie live stream. Today we talked about used versus new. Now, let me just say this last thing as a closing remark. If you have the ability to buy a new camera and that's something that you want, more power to you. But in a nutshell, if you have the ability to purchase whatever camera that you want, I still tell you, get something that you don't worry about, because the worst thing that you want is to buy something that will be so like high priced or so cared over that you actually don't use it. I would highly recommend buy something that's got a couple of nicks and dings in it that you don't have to worry about in case if it falls or it breaks, because then replacing a used piece of gear is a lot less crucial than something that's brand new. You know, and let's just say we all hope that you fall in love with photography and video the way that I have, and that this is something that you would want to pursue and do. Then, you know, you would never want to be without a camera. And like I always say, to become the best photographer that you can be, the camera that you have in your hand is the last thing that matters, because you need to upgrade your skills before your gear. And with that, I will leave you. Have a great night. Be safe. Take care of each other. And I will see you all next week. Have a great night, guys. Oh, Sly just snuck in. Let me just... I have to say hi to Sly. Says, hello fellow junkie, I've been listening on the drive home. I've always been buying used gear because I don't know enough about it. Well, in that aspect, you know, even before I'm leaving soon, but just to touch base on that, that's why I tell you, go check out KEH and stuff like that, because even B&H has a used department. And right now, like, one of the next upgrades that I'm gonna be doing is getting my Mac M1 Mini, and I'm definitely gonna be looking into the refurbished side of Apple, because the computer's gonna end up being $589. I saw it today. I'm like, yeah, there's no reason that I can't just, you know, put together the rest of that. That's why I'm thinking, if KEH gives me a good price outright, I might just send them the lens and have them send me the money, and use that to already get my M1 Mac Mini and start working on that, because I know that that's my next upgrade. So it's already, I'm looking to get the best price on what I already know is going to be my next piece of gear. So, and he says, oh yes, happy Father's Day to all the dads. Norm saying hi, Sly saying hi back. We had a snow week during the blizzard of 68. Good night, everyone. All right, you say night, Randy. Thank you, Sly, for stopping in. I appreciate you listening. And as like I said before, everyone have a great week, and I will see you all next time. Friction arms are one of my favorite accessories. Today's tip, I show you how I use friction arms to make handles for my camera cage. All you have to do is hand screw the 1/4-20s, set your desired angle, and tighten to set in place. Now you have an adjustable handle with multiple uses, allowing you to get a better grip on your camera for stable handheld footage. It can also be set as a top handle to get very low angles. Mr. Camera Junkie's tip of the day.